The transfer portal has completely changed the college sports landscape. More and more athletes who thought they were going straight to D1, they're finding out that JUCO, D3, D2 are the new norm, and that's okay. But here's the real question: do you actually know what it takes to make it D1, to succeed at one of the top JUCOs in the country, to keep grinding when the path that you thought you were on isn't what you expected? Today, I'm talking to Nick Marrero, a former catcher who took the JUCO route, playing at Chipola, one of the best JUCOs in the nation, and then made it D1. We're breaking down what it really takes to reach the top levels of college sports, the mindset that separates those who make it from those who don't, and what athletes need to start doing now to separate themselves. So welcome back to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast, where we help you unlock your full potential through better training, nutrition, and mindset. And today we have Nick Marrero. So he played at Chipola and HTC before going D1 at Hofstra University. Now he's in law school, applying everything he learned in baseball to his next phase in life. So Nick, welcome to the show.
How are we doing, Nick?
Good. It's fun to have two Nicks on the show. I always enjoy it.
It's weird saying back and forth. I like what we both like each other's names, so it's all good.
Yeah. So I wanna take the listeners just through your journey, really. So from high school to JUCO to D1 to now. So let's start first in high school. What was your dream as a high school baseball player?
So I mean, I feel like my dream and everyone is to always play pro baseball. I think that's the biggest dream that everyone sees, and probably as a kid, that's what you really want to do. Getting to high school is, you kind of have that in the back of your mind, but then you start to realize what it takes, and then you realize that there's steps to get there. Like if I want to play pro, I either need to get drafted out of high school, or I got to go play at a Division I, top tier, Division II, Division III, or JUCO. So yeah, I mean, the goal was always to play pro baseball. Going through high school was kind of, so you see a lot of videos of like high school kids and kids going to play Division I right out of their freshman year. They're all very fast developing kids. And I say that to the point of, I had a friend that went and played at a big Division I right out of high school. He played with me. His freshman year to his senior year, he was the exact same. He was 6'1", 6'2". He gained weight, and that was about it. He had developed quick. Me, I came in a freshman in high school at like 5'5", and I got out of there at 5'9". And then my sophomore year of college, I was finally 5'11". So your goal is to get to pro ball is kind of the overall goal, and it doesn't happen to a lot of kids. And getting from high school to Division I think it's 2% of the population, or 2% of high school kids go to play even college, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO. And the biggest thing for me was finding what fit me the best. So I was late development. I really didn't put up numbers my freshman, sophomore year because I wasn't like at that level yet of all the other kids on my team, because I just wasn't bigger, faster, stronger than them. Come my junior year, I had a really good year. So me and my dad had talked, and he very, very straightforward, very honest. He said, "You probably not going to get any offers to Division I because you just develop too late. They already have their roster for kids that are freshmen and even eighth graders. They offer them." So he said, "You have options. You could go play Division II, Division III, wait 4 years, and then transfer to your fifth year, hopefully, to Division I, or your fourth year. Or we could try the junior college route." So for me, going JUCO was realizing, hey, I really want to play at the Division I level. I want to get there as quick as possible, but I need to go through steps before to get there. So I think that in 2016, 2017, that was the mindset of somebody that wanted to go play Division I that just didn't do it. Nowadays, I think it is a little different in the landscape of the way college athletics is kind of shaped around the last couple years since 2020, 2021.
Yeah, I mean that transfer portal allows them to still do the D2, D3 and always transfer, but I think I do want to stress the opportunities and the like what can still come from that JUCO route, because like even you, like I said, like Chipola is not just the top for baseball, it's the top in the country, like across the board for sports. So like, what do you feel like really like separated Chipola and like your experience there compared to say like even a D2, D3?
Coaching. It's the easiest answer, but that's what it is. Coach Jeff Johnson was an awesome coach. He's been there for over 20, 25 years probably. He's the athletic director. He knows how to manage a team. And then he surrounded himself with people that really knew baseball knowledge. My coaches there were Jeff Fiorentino. He played 5 years in the Baltimore Orioles organization, went over to Japan and played. Terrence Conley, he ended up from Chipola going to coach out of Division I. Just everyone around there in that organization with just coaching, they just held you to a higher standard. And it was the point of you would go in there, you're playing with guys that had played at the Division I level that got kicked back into JUCO, or you're playing with guys that got drafted out of high school when it was 40 rounds. So it changed to 20, but it was 40 back then. So it was guys that got drafted in the 35th, 36th, 37th round and decided to go JUCO to put up numbers, get their draft rounds down into the place where they can make the money that they wanted to. And for me going in, that was very intimidating because, like I said, late development, didn't play really a lot of high school baseball till my junior year. And I come in, I'm freshly new 18 playing with guys that are 21, 20 years old that have been there and done that. And what they do with that program is they take everybody that is, you could be in this span and just put you right here. It didn't matter if you got drafted. It didn't matter if you didn't play in high school. You're here for a reason, and they treat everyone the exact same. And he holds everyone accountable. You really learn to become a man in that sense. Or in softball, the softball coaches were the exact same way. The new ones that came in, they taught them how to be women in society, men in society. They held you to another standard, and that's really where like the maturity level came in to that. So the coaching anywhere at any level could be D2, D3. If it's good coaching, you're gonna be able to do something.
Yeah. No, that's good. What were some like wake up calls that when you went from high school to college?
In what sense?
Well, I know we mentioned like training wise, that was a big transition.
Yeah, so there was a few. So definitely wake up call number one was the schedule. You couldn't show up to practice, and that was it. You would have lift at 5:30 in the morning, go to class, come back to the locker room, do whatever you need to do to get ready for practice. You practice, you continue working after practice, and then you go home, eat, shower, go to bed, rinse and repeat. So the schedule is a lot tougher than high school. You would think that it wasn't because you're taking less classes. The time that you have just gets taken right to baseball. So it's definitely an adjustment period. I really enjoyed it. It's funny. The best periods in college is when you're in playoff mode. So you're playing baseball, but there's no school. So you wake up at 8, 9 in the morning, you go work out, you stay in the locker room, you go to practice, you stay in the locker room, and then you're not home until 10 o'clock, but it's fun. Like those are my favorite moments. Wake up call with talent wise, it was probably our first practice on the field when you're seeing guys that had gotten drafted, guys that played Division I, just parking balls like 4:30 every single round, and you're like, I can't do that yet. I don't know what's gonna happen. And then honestly, just accountability wake up call. I remember we played a fall game against FAMU, Florida A&M University. We went over and played that, and we played terrible, horrible. And bus ride back, it's like an hour to Tallahassee, so an hour bus ride back, dead silent, no one's talking. And then the next day we wake up, we get to the field, and the drill was you go in, get changed, put on your spikes, wait in the dugout, because we always have like a pre-practice meeting. We walk out there, our coach walks out with the trainer, and we're like, oh, that's not good. And he goes, everyone go put your turfs on. We're like, okay. We did 35 minutes of 15, 20 minutes of board pushes and then listening drills for it was like an hour and a half. And then he just said, go home. We just went back to the doors. We're like, what just happened? And all the guys that have been there before, like, yeah, we knew this was going to happen. But it seems like that sounds terrible, but it sucks when you're doing it. But it's like you realize why you're doing it. It wasn't that we played bad. It was that we played lazy. That was the key. So you realize that afterwards, and it gets fixed. And it's a life lesson. Like in real life, if you're lazy at your job, they don't make you run, they fire you. So it keeps that in the back of your mind, like, oh, I'm not getting fired. So what is this? If this is the worst thing that can happen, then I'm gonna fix what I can do and then keep moving forward. So Yeah, I think just the whole culture there was just fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys got to like your freshman year, you got that national championship run. So, I mean, you can share a little bit of like that experience, but I especially want you to talk about that. You said it was the game before the championship, right?
Yeah, so I mean that year was interesting. There was and a lot of people think like when you're part of like a team that like we were ranked number 1 in the country. I didn't play a lot really at all, but I got to travel with the team. I got to see the dynamic. It's not all highs. It was a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of highs, and it's funny. We clinched the playoffs like 2 or 3 weeks early before the season ended. The last 8 games we went. So going into the playoffs, we were like, oh no, this is not going to be good. So the way back then they changed the format was you would play a state tournament. So there's, I think, 5 or 6 conferences in Florida. Top 2 teams from each conference go and play a tournament. Whoever wins that tournament goes to Colorado for the national championship. And we had played this team earlier in the year, and I picked up their signs. And so I told my coach, and we ended up getting them late, like 7th, 8th inning. But then we ended up matching up with that team in the championship. So before the game in the hotel, we were eating breakfast, and I went up to Jeff Fiorentino, and I said, hey, Coach Fio, this is the same team from earlier in the year that we had the signs. And he's like, all right, what can we do? I'm like, I could see them in right field because the bullpen was in right field at Tigertown in Lakeland. So I told him, I was like, I'll go down there the first inning, send somebody with me, a pitcher that already threw, and we'll see if we could pick it up. And it was like, okay. And there was a phone. So first inning goes, we're looking, and we had him. So I took the phone, called Theo down there, and I was like, hey, we got the sign. So he ended up, let me see if this is a piece of paper. We ended up, the way it worked was I had like a pad, and so we had a lot of like Spanish kids on the team. So we would relay signs in Spanish. So if we said placata, which means home run, it was fastball. And if we said perro, which was dog, it meant curveball. So I would be sitting, I'd get the signs, and I would hold up this, like the paper like this, it would be fastball. If I went like this, it was curveball. Right when we started it, we put up 7 runs, and our 4-hole hitter hit a grand slam.
So,
and then I ended up getting player of the game by doing that. It was awesome.
The reason I wanted to share that is like, you were a freshman, you said you were third in terms of like catcher wise, because there was 2 other catchers ahead of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the chances of you playing in the national championship game is pretty slim. But to understand that like you guys athletes, like we all have a role to play. You can't always be the guy that hits the game winning home run or the guy that gets the final strikeout. Like, you can be a huge difference maker for that team in a less pronounced role, and who knows, you might even get player of the game out of it. But
it's the thing of like you all, like I said before when we started this, the goal is pro ball, right? But when you get into college, it's such a different like vibe with the team. Like in high school, they're your friends, but you see them in school, you might have class with them, you might not. Then you see them for baseball, which is 2-3 hours, and then you kind of go away, and then you see them the next day. In college, like the dorms at Chipola were right up the hill by the baseball field. We all lived in the dorms. So it was, you wake up with them, you eat with them, you sleep with them, you go to the field, you practice with them, you do everything with them. You see them, if you're up for 17 hours, you see them 17 hours of the day. So it turns into that selfish, I want to play pro ball, to these guys are my brothers, and I want this just as much as they want this, and I'm going to help the team no matter what it does. And when you have that kind of dynamic on the team, that's when the team goes well. My coach always said, everyone pulling from the same end of the rope.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, that's I think, yeah, a key thing with, again, championship teams, with the teams that are really successful. It's not just about one guy. It's especially in baseball, like you have to have, a team. So I really, really like that. Now, if we transition, transition more on the D1 side of things. So first off, I want to ask you, like, if a high school athlete walked up to you, I'm sure you've actually had this with your dad's players, is, they tell you want to go that they want to go D1. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, like, are you sure that's what you want to do? And they'd go, yes, I really want to. And I go, okay, here's the schedule. And I would tell them the schedule. It would be, you're waking up at 5 a.m., you go lift, then you shower, then you go to class, then you go to practice, then you do more practice, and then you go to bed. And then it's rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And I would look at them and say, is that what you want? And they would go, yes. And then the next question would be, are you doing enough to get there? and then it's kind of radio silence. So it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to want it, and it's another thing to do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what I try to get to them. Like I would always say, what do you do with baseball? Well, I go to practice 2 hours a day. That's not enough. You have to do more to get there, because it's what's the guy next to you doing? The stat is, I think it's high school players to go on to play any level of college, not just Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, the JUCO, NAIA is 2%. 2% of high school players go on to play college at all. So if you want to be not only within that 2%, but the lower end of that percentage to go play Division 1, you have to do more than what the guy next to you doing. And it's sacrificing a lot of things. It's sacrificing times with friends, sacrificing parties, sacrificing all the fun stuff that you want to do. Now, you can do it. No one's saying you can't, but you have to be able to get what you need to get done first to then go and have that fun stuff, if that's what you really want to do. And sometimes kids really, they start doing it and they're like, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. And it's fine. Find what you want to do and go do it. But if this is what you want to do, you got to put in the work and you got to be able to sacrifice things.
Yeah. So besides like the putting in like the hard work, what would you say are a few of the key things, especially in our day and age with the transfer portal and everything? What would be a few key things that would really separate guys, the guys who make it D1 versus the guys who don't?
It's a hard question because you, like how I started this, I didn't develop very well, or not very well. I'm developed fine. I developed late.
Yeah.
Like later to compare to some people. That has a lot to do with it, and it really does. And you could put in as much work as you need. You just might not be at that level of some people. So I think the biggest thing is for high school kids going into college, go where you're going to play. And the reason why I say this, with the age of the transfer portal and all of this different stuff, you can go from high school to JUCO, high school to Division 2, high school to Division 3, and be playing in Division 1 the very next year. It didn't used to be like that. You had to have done your 2 years at JUCO or 3 years Division 2, Division 3 to even get into it now. Now with the transfer portal, Division 1s really aren't looking at high school kids, barring the top prospects at Tennessee, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Your main market of Division 1s are your mid-majors, your CAAs, Big Ten, or not Big Ten, Big Ten Conference, American Athletic Conference. Those are your big mid-majors that most of your percentage of players go to play at. They're pulling a lot from the transfer portal in those Division 2s, Division 3s, and JUCOs because those guys are ready to play. Like they've had the experience in college, and that level up isn't as drastic as a step from high school to Division 1. So I think the best advice I can give is go somewhere you know you're going to play. Go and play, put up numbers, and then you can get up into that aspect. Because if you go and play at Division 1 at a big Division 1 Power 4 school now, there's a chance you're going in there with 80 other kids, and there's a good chance you either sit and you don't play for 4 years, or you go in the fall and then they tell you to get out.
I really like that you said number one, like go where you're actually going to play. I think that's huge. I think a lot of players, they think, oh yeah, like, well, I just want the D1 title or, whatever it might be. It's like, well, do you really want to ride the bench that long? Do you want to potentially get kicked off type of thing? Like, yeah, I think
it's not even kicked off. It's just, they don't have room for you. Like I know schools will bring in 80 kids, they'll bring in 80 players in general. And it'll be 30 freshmen or 30 high school seniors to become freshmen. And they brought in their transfers and they have the returning players and they have that sample size just to get 3 guys. And most of them, they're not starting spots. They're usually their second or third spring spots. They find it, and it's not that they want to cut you. NCAA rule is 40 players on the roster.
When I think they just shrink that too.
I think it's 36 now, 35. Something like that. So NCAA puts a cut on that roster, including the red shirts. So do the math. There's 70 people there. Somebody's got to go. So, and it sucks. It sucks that they do it, but the new age of a transfer portal and NIL it kind of allows that to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not even done with the full unpacking of what these things like NIL are going to do to the shift in landscape for sure. So I think that's especially you guys who are younger, freshmen, sophomore, even younger, listening, like just be prepared for that. Like if you're younger, then cool, you got time to let the dust settle. But for those who are approaching those key years, like yeah, like you might realistically, it's probably going to be best for you to like you said, start at a lower level, and then hey, you might have an opportunity in a year, maybe two, depending on the work that you put in.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird, and I really do feel for the high school kids the last 5 years, because it was COVID at first. Then the case that started all this was NCAA v. Alston in 2021 with the Supreme Court. And it just was one after the other after the other. COVID, everyone came back. They stayed for 3 more years. So 2024, you got 26-year-olds playing. Like, how do you want an 18-year-old to compete a 26-year-old? And then NAIA really started to kick up. And it's essentially paying players to come to your school. And it's not even just Division Ones. Like, my old coach was saying, like, Division Threes are doing this. And it's all based on how many donors you have. The donors act as that third party to go ask these kids to come in, and who's going to say no to that? And it's essentially a free agent market.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It'll be interesting, and I like that you come at this with that law background too, because you definitely, out of anybody, understand this on a much deeper level.
Mm.
I do want to ask real quick though about that transition from JUCO to D1. What was that transition like?
I have a kind of a skewed viewpoint because it did happen during COVID. So I had a lot of, during the spring of 2020, I was getting talked to by some Division One schools down south, and they and in March is when it really kicks up. COVID happened like March 11th, so that didn't happen. And I was talking to them for a couple weeks after NCAA comes out and says all of the seniors get a year of eligibility back. Well, everyone gets another year of eligibility back, but they were saying, like, you're going to have 65 people here. Like, we can't guarantee anything. So I ended up going to Hofstra in July of 2020, and starting the season in August. It was it was just weird, like, because of all the quarantines and all of the, you got to wear a mask, you can't do this. So it's not, I guess, a beneficial analysis for my part, because it was so different.
Mm-hmm.
I would say competition wise, when the season started, it really wasn't much different than Division One JUCOs down there. Like, I mean, I had faced Ben Joyce from Tennessee, went to the Angels. I faced him in junior college. Like, those were the type of competition you were facing. Listen, I went to a mid-major. I think the conference is ranked 8th in the United States, the CAA, Colonial Athletic, or it's the Coastal Athletic now. Competition was the same as a junior college down in Florida. And that's saying a lot for the CAA and Division One in general, is like, this is 8th. And then we would play, when I played, we played North Carolina, we played Georgia, we played West Virginia. I played those teams, and the competitions, they're very good. But it was a lot of the same at Florida JUCO, in my opinion.
Well, and that's where, I mean, again, it depends on where you went. Like, I think here in Washington State, our JUCOs are a little bit different than Chipola,
Yeah,
for sure.
the biggest hot areas for JUCOs, Florida, Texas, and California, and Nevada, Arizona area.
No, that's fair. Now, I wanna paint this picture too for the athletes of, like, that transition. I've had other athletes on and coaches and whatnot on the podcast, and I even have like one who he's still in high school and already knows what he wants to do after playing baseball. So, like, what was that transition like when you had to, like, hang up the cleats, hang up the jersey? Because I know, like, that comes with everybody. And so, yeah, what was that transition like going from that to law school?
Yeah, I mean, like it's inevitable. You either hang up the cleats when you're 18, 23, or whenever you retire from pro ball or whatever it is. Like I said, everyone's dream is to play pro ball, and it's a low percentage, and you kind of realize that through college. Like, I'm probably not going to be able to make that because rounds drop to 20 rounds. For me, it wasn't like, hanging it up wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I think mainly because I could look myself in the mirror and say I did all that I could to get to where I was. And it's kind of like, it sucks, but it's a sign of, like, I did what I could. There's nothing I could do. It's time to move on and do something. The transition into law school was honestly more refreshing. So it's like, you stop playing, you're like, oh, I wish I was playing. You get 2 months out and you're like, this is kind of fine. I got my own schedule. Like, I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to get yelled at by anyone. But no, I think the skills I learned as an athlete in Division I and college in general was time management was a big one. Learning to do things on my own really helped with law school, because law school is a big time management thing. So is an everyday job. You have to time manage. So all of those skills that I learned from being an athlete kind of moved into law school and into other jobs that I have, which is why I always tell kids, like, don't go D1 or bust. Like, go play college athletics, because it teaches you skills and life lessons you're not going to learn anywhere else. And it's also beneficial for the parents too. You know what your kid's doing in college. Like, you don't know, like, they go join some frat at some other university, you don't know what they're doing. When they're in athletics, you know that's what they're doing, and you know it's kind of paving the way for their future and being able to be successful.
So you speak a lot on time management. I actually, one of the middle schoolers I know that listens to this podcast, so I'll make sure that he listens to this part, is so he plays multiple sports, and he actually asked me, he's like, hey, can you get somebody on there to talk about like playing multiple sports, or really the key thing is the time management element of it. So like what would be your advice around time management for these younger athletes?
So I played football in high school. I played for 2 years, and the reason I stopped was because I kind of looked in the mirror and I was like, well, I'm 5'10", 195 pounds. I have a better shot at going playing college baseball than college football. And if I still play football through high school, I'm going to end up hurting myself. But so time management for younger athletes, I think it's very beneficial to play as many sports as you could. And one thing I have noticed with kids that play baseball year round is they get burnt out. It's a hard game, and it's hard at every level. So taking that break in the winter to go play basketball, taking that break to go play football, taking that break to go do whatever is very beneficial, because it is a frustrating game. Like, I was a good Division I player. My career average was like 275. And there was times where like I felt like I was like, I'm gonna get drafted, and then the next 2 games, like, I suck. So it's such a mind-boggling, mind-bending game that break does help. I did get off on a little bit of a tangent, so I'll bring it back to time management.
No, it's important.
Time management for younger kids it's harder for younger kids because you don't have like so many outside other responsibilities. You have school and you have your athletics. I would make sure to put the time into what you want to put your time into with athletics. Like, if you really want to play baseball, like, okay, when it's baseball season, dedicate yourself there, get your grades done on the side, make sure you're good, make sure you're listening to your parents. And then if you switch to football, if that's something you really want to do, all right, I'm going to dedicate my time to football. I'm going to watch videos, and you don't need a cage in your backyard, and you don't need access to a facility. Like, I always tell the players that I train, like, your homework for the week, I want you to watch YouTube videos in slow motion of this player and just try and mimic him. Do your best to do that. And that's what a lot of kids don't realize. Like, kids walk in with $500 bats, $500 gloves, this and that. I didn't have anything like that growing up, and I ended up fine. And it's a lot of just, if you're just in your house working on your transfers, working on your swing, like, that's just fine for kids growing up and growing into their bodies and being able to move and do the things that you need to do. You'll get to a point where you get strong enough to be able to do what you see the bigger guys doing.
That's good. I knew, I was like, when you kept mentioning time management, I was like, I want to address that. So like, you're done with sport, you're working in law, but you're not really done with sports. Why is it important to you to still be involved in sports, even when you're in something that maybe, people wouldn't think sports related?
It's just a part of you. Like, I played baseball since I was 3 years old, and everyone I'm in law school with right now, like, didn't play sports. So they're all talking about like their frats and their extracurricular activities they did. And they're like, oh, what did you do? I'm like, I play baseball. Like, you didn't do anything else? No, I play baseball. Like, that's as much it took up all of my time. Yeah. So it really becomes a part of you. And like, a lot of my friends from baseball, they're still my best friends. I hang out with them all the time. They're from Long Island. Some are from Manhattan, and I see them all the time. So it's just something that's part of your life. Staying around the game is something that's really important to me too. So I help out at Hofstra Baseball's team. I go through BP. I go to some of the games. I help manage the bullpen. And it's something that kind of just relaxes me and takes me out of like the stress that I have with law school and things like that, because I really actually thoroughly enjoy law school. I do enjoy the law part. I enjoy doing certain things that comes with it. But there is times where like just need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and like this is kind of where I feel like at home. Like this is like my like safe spot. So having that balance within it, and that's coming from me. That's what I really love to do, and it was part of my life. And that point of view might come differently from somebody that just played in high school. Like maybe they just did it for fun and they could care less and they kick it down the curb. But everyone that I played with in college, like they feel the same way. They need to be around the game in some capacity to feel like okay.
Well, that's, I mean, especially when you think about law school, like that's a lot. It's just like with baseball, you talk about like you can get real burnt out doing just that one thing all the
Yeah.
time, and so diversifying your portfolio or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you need diversification. That's another podcast we could talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just taking that break. I remember a freshman when I was a senior at Hofstra Division 1, and he went 0 for 4 in a scrimmage, and I caught him like hitting at like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I went 0 for 4. I got a hit." I'm like, "If you were getting extra work in, I'd be so fine with you doing that right now. But you need to put the bat down and go do something else. Go play video games, go do something." Because he was working with the stress of going 0 for 4. They didn't want to do it again. And that's just going to make you do it over and over and over again. So it's a lot of baseball is really like learning when to just take a step back. Like everyone wants to work hard. Everyone wants to do that. But sometimes you just need to take a break and take a deep breath, get your mind off of it, and then come back later. Because it is such a hard game. Like the old saying, if you shoot 30% in basketball, you're not going anywhere with it. If you get a hit 30% of the time in baseball, you're a Hall of Famer. So it's such a harder game that you need to have that balance of know when it's time to take a break and know when it's time to put work in.
No, that's good. I appreciate you sharing that. So last question, what would be your biggest lesson for these athletes who are trying to pave their own path to, D1, pro, college in general? What would be your one key lesson?
Hard work. It's kind of it's simple get out answer, but is that simple. It's hard. Like working hard works in both ways, right? You work hard, you could get to where you want to go. And you're putting all of your time and effort into something that you really want to do, and it'll work out. The other thing is this: if it doesn't work out, you can look at the person in the mirror and say, I did all that I could. That's kind of the same thing that came from me when it's time to put up the cleats, right? It's the percentages are against you. The math is against you. Everything's against you getting to where you want to go. If you put in that work, even if it's not where you want to go, you're going to be happy at the end. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Because if I sit up here and say, you work hard, you're going to go play Division 1, it would be a lie. And it's the world we live in, and it's the math. And not everyone gets to do it. But from the experience that I've gained from talking to others and kind of myself, you work hard and you do all you can to get somewhere. Wherever you end up, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, JUCO, there is a home for you, and you will feel great about where you're at. And the good thing is nowadays you go to JUCO, and this is my selling point on junior college. You go to JUCO, you can easily get into Division 1. It's just a stepping stone. So while I wanted to be on signing day on the stage in front of the entire school, signing a letter of intent to Kentucky or Georgia, it didn't happen. But I knew, all right, my stepping stone is junior college. And then I was happy with that. In the moment, it was like, I don't really want to go do this. Like, it seems like it's embarrassing. I got there, best 3 years of my life. Seriously, loved it. Then I went to Hofstra. And it's like, it's a Division 1, but no one really knows it. So like, no one's like going to be like, oh, wow, you went there. But I went there, best years of my life. Again, the whole of college baseball, best years of my life. And we got to do something that no one else got to do in the history of Hofstra is win a conference championship and go to a regional at North Carolina. So if you work hard, wherever you end up, you're going to be happy where you're at. But you got to put in that work and not have any regrets when you do it.
Yeah, no regrets. Leave everything on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a ton of people who didn't make it who have regrets. So don't be those guys, or gals. Yeah. Like leave it all on the table. And I'm one of them, to be honest. Like I was not one of those people, and I left a lot on the table. That's why I'm not leaving anything on the table for this. So But yeah, Nick, I really appreciate you jumping on and just, talking through the journey, but then also again, a lot of these key lessons that they can take from your story and just from your experience looking back on it. So is there a good place that people can connect with you, or if they have questions? Or
I got Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X. Just give me a follow and just shoot me a direct message. I'd be happy to respond. You can leave my email too. I don't know, somewhere if there's a link under it. Yeah, you could do.
yeah, in the show notes, I'll include all your stuff in there, and I'll drop it. I won't drop your phone number like your dad was like, hey, I'm just gonna shoot my phone number out there. I was like, oh dang.
Yeah, no, it's not, yeah, because I got
Yeah.
people calling. Yeah, don't do it.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for jumping on today. There's definitely a lot that I think the athletes can take from this.
Yeah, no, of course, man. And if you need anything else, I'd be happy. I think you're doing a fantastic job at what you're doing. So if you need anything else from me, I'd be happy to jump on and do something like this again.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely touch base with the listeners, see if there's any key things that we want to dig a little deeper on for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So if you guys got value from this episode, be sure to share it with a teammate and be sure to subscribe. Until next time, keep striving for greatness.